Today we're going to be installing our top zipper on our bag. You will need your 2 exterior pieces, your 2 lining pieces, your size 5 zipper. You will also need a 2x2 or approximately 2x2 scrap of your exterior fabric to do your zipper end tab. I do a single end tab when I use the Butler method to install my zippers, so I'm going to do it that way today. And you'll also need double-sided tape and a ruler. So let's get started. The first thing to do is put your zipper pull on your zipper tape if you're using zipper by the yard. If you're using a pre-made zipper, then you don't need to do this step. So just pop that pull on there. Then we need to make our tab. So take your 2x2 piece of exterior fabric, fold it in half, press with an iron, finger press, or use a seam roller to press that, then fold it in to the middle again, and then same on the other side to make a double fold. And then you have a little zipper tab that you can then sandwich around the end of your zipper. You can trim some of those threads off if you want to. Pop that on there. Then I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew 1/8 of an inch along the edge here just to hold that tab in place. If you're using a nylon zipper, you can sew over the top of it. I only recommend using nylon zippers. I don't ever use metal zippers because you can't sew over them. So sew straight across that, and then we will get ready to sew the actual zipper into the bag. Okay, now that we have this tab sewn on the end of our zipper, we need to take our exterior front piece and the lining piece that doesn't have the lining pocket here. We're going to take some double-sided tape, and I like to do this on my cutting mat so I can measure from using my cutting mat as a guide, but you can also use your ruler. Just starting 3/4 of an inch, apply tape along the top of your exterior piece, and then with the 2 top pieces facing each other, also starting 3/4 of an inch in and going across that lining piece. Then you're going to peel that tape off and then attach the zipper, stick the zipper down. This is why I'm missing that thumbnail, so I use that to peel that off. So now we need to also come in, I like to do 5/8 of an inch. You can do 3/4 of an inch if you like a little bit more room around your tab, and just stick that down, smooth it across the top here, and then peel the tape off your lining, and then you're going to lay that on the top to sandwich the zipper between the exterior and the lining piece. I'm just going to put that down there, and you can see that the edges are pretty well lined up there. Flip it back over so that your exterior is up. Grab your pen and just make a little line there, 3/4 of an inch in. We're going to go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew from the very end here along the side of the zipper. We're going to stop here, and then we're going to open up the tape, turn the tape out 90 degrees, and keep sewing across it to create the stop at the other end. I'm going to switch over to my zipper foot, so let's head over to the machine and I'll show you how I do that. So just using a 2.4 stitch length, that's what I use for all of my construction. Sewing 3/8 of an inch alongside that zipper. When I get to my zipper pull, slide it out of the way, and then I keep going. And because we use the double-sided tape, I don't have to worry about things shifting around. Keep going up to where that mark is on the fabric, I'm going to back stitch there. Then I'm going to open this zipper up, lift my presser foot, and just pull it out to the side like this. This is a little bit tricky with the camera. Let me just, here we go, that's better. Hold that out to the side, drop the presser foot back down. So straight over the end, holding that in place. Then I like to back stitch. It's just getting a little bit stuck there. And then come forward again. Then I like to lift the presser foot, turn the piece 90 degrees, holding that zipper tail out of the way. Then I sew down directly next to it and back stitch there. Take that off the machine. And then you can see here, you've got that sewn in there. Then we do the other side, and then we will top stitch the zipper. Now we're going to do the other side of the zipper. So you're taking your exterior back piece and you're lining with the pocket, and we're going to do it the mirror image. So instead of leaving a 3/4 inch gap in the tape on this side, we're going to do it on the other side. So grab your tape, using your cutting mat as a guide, or a ruler, or just eyeballing it if you're good at that stuff. Put the tape across both sides. Then we're going to do the same thing as we just did on the other side. So peel that off. Lay this down on top of your zipper, keeping your same 5/8 an inch or thereabouts gap at the end there. More importantly than this measurement here is lining up your sides here. So I like to line that up. Keep your zipper out of the way. Oops, my tape got caught on the zipper and peeled back a bit. Keep that out of the way. Sticking it down across there. Sometimes it's easier to turn it over once you've got it lined up properly at the edge. Okay. Then grab your other lining piece. The double sided tape off there. And then again, lining up your edges, sticking it down onto the zipper tape all the way to the edge. And check if it's lined up all right. Then grabbing your pen, using not the lining piece, but your exterior piece as your guide. They should be pretty close to lined up, but just in case, I like to use this as my guide. So I'm lining up the edge here. I'm going to measure 3/4 inch in from this edge of the exterior, and I'm going to put a mark on my lining piece, because when we install our zipper like this, we start at the closed end and we work towards the open end on both sides, which means when you do one side, you're sewing with the exterior up, and the other side, you're sewing with the lining up. So just keeping it marked on that side. I'm going to head back over to the machine and just do the same thing, sewing along here and then turning the zipper out 90 degrees to finish off that end. The next thing that we need to do is to top stitch along the exterior panels here. Before I do that, I like to make sure that I'm happy with how my zipper ends are lining up and happy with the symmetry of my zipper. and make sure that it's smooth and doesn't have too many bumps in it. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to go over to the machine to top stitch this. We're going to use a size 4 stitch length, and when we do it, we're only going to top stitch through the exterior. We're not going to stitch the lining down. That's going to give us nicer corners when we turn it out. So what that means is I'm going to flip both pieces of the lining to one side. You can see everything's on one side except for this exterior and the seam there. So when we sew, we're going to sew down here, sewing the seam allowance down, keeping the lining out of the way. And then when we do the other side, we're going to flip it over, flip everything to the other side. So again, everything is over on this side, and we've only got the exterior here. And then we're going to sew down this side as well. So let's go ahead and do that. The next thing that we need to do, and the last thing that we're going to do today, is sew the side seams of our bag. I like to start by lining up the edges of the exterior on either side first and then clipping from there. So the first thing that I do is flip it over, line up my exteriors here, and if you have a look, you can see where they line up. And then I like to staple that so that it doesn't shift at all. Clips are pretty good at not shifting, but they still can shift a little bit. So I just staple there inside the seam allowance. I do the same thing on the other side. Just lining up the exterior here as best as I can, and that really helps to get neat corners when you turn your bag. Actually, I'm going to trim this first. And trim these little bits of the zipper tail because they can get in the way a little bit. So it just makes it a little bit easier to line that up there. Staple that there. This is a little bit hard to do from this angle. Okay, get it lined up. Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now the next thing that I do, I like to use landmarks. So go to the dots on the bottom, and then you can either fold those open and line them up that way, or you can turn one to each side. I like to turn one to each side. Line those up there. You could staple that too if you wanted to. I just use clips on that part. Same on the other side. Something else that I like to do is fold them the same way. So fold these ones both to the left, and then the other ones will go both to the right. So clipping there. Then clip in between. You can also line up where your accent piece is. Try to line that up. And that will just make for a neater finish when we turn it back around. Clipping also here, another landmark. Try to line up that bottom seam there. Again to this side. Line up the vinyl bits. I like to clip on either side of this one because it's a bit thick there. And then here again. Now we do the line here. So looking here, you can see this is pushed up here, which is to the left. So this side I'm going to do down so that when we tuck the lining inside there, it'll sit nicely. So lining that up, I like to kind of butt the two seams against each other so that you get a nice neat finish there. Doing that, so keeping any stray threads out of the way, trimming them off as you go. We're going to leave the bottom of the bag open to turn. So you can put clips here, but you're going to want to leave probably about 4 or 5 inches open here. So you can mark that if you want to. I'll probably do 4.5 inches. Okay, that's about there to there. Just so when I'm sewing around, I know where to leave my gap. And then the sides here. The other thing that I'm going to do when I'm sewing around here is for the exterior, when I'm sewing around, I'm going to use the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance included in the pattern. When I go around the bottom, I'm going to go with a bigger seam allowance than that. Some patterns and some of Leanne's other patterns will grade the lining for you. This pattern does not grade the lining. So when I come in here, when I'm sewing along here, this is going to be 3/8 of an inch along here. And then once I get past the seam here, I'm going to gradually come in about an extra 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch to come in smaller, make the lining a bit smaller so that it won't be baggy inside of the exterior. And that's particularly important because we have not top stitched the lining here. So that'll be 5/8 or 6/8 or 3/4 of an inch around here on all around the lining, keeping it the regular 3/8 around the exterior part. So I'll head over to the machine and I will sew that now. I'm actually going to start at the bottom opening so I can sew around in one go without having to stop. Because the bag has darts, you're not stopping and starting to box corners or anything like that. So it's nice you can go around in one go. So I'm actually going to start at 5/8 of an inch for my seam allowance. And you can just measure that there. And then I'll gradually decrease as I come around to the seam here. When I am sewing the edges, I like to keep my needle in the far left position because when I get close to the zipper tab and the zipper end, I'm gonna not want to have too much bulk of the foot trying to get past that as well. So let's get sewing. Now what I'm going to do is pull those couple of staples out that I put in earlier. Just yank them out. Then trim any threads so that they don't get in the way when we're turning. And then if you have pinking shears or a pinking rotary cutter, I like to trim around the edge here. I actually don't trim through the dart because I don't want to cut through the stitches. So I tend to kind of like curve it around from where this turning hole is. And I'll just do it like this. Curve it around there. It's not going to come off very well. Ugh. Come on, it doesn't like to cut on a curve. I should have used the scissors for that part. But anyway. And then just up the side here. Not too close. That was maybe a little too close. Not too close. And then this is not the sharpest blade on this thing. I've been using it before I wash my fabric. I've been using it on all the edges so that they don't fray as much. All the wovens and canvas particularly frays a fair bit. So just along here. got my scissors instead. So just cutting along here, just to trim it to reduce the bulk, and then also because it's the canvas, it frays a little bit. It's not interfaced, so the pinking shears help a bit with that too. So that's done, trimmed. I'm not going to cut any of the bulk out of the corners there because I like to leave that there for when I'm turning. But the last thing that I am going to do is where my turning hole is I'm just going to press that here. I'm going to use my seam roller. You could use an iron or you could just finger press it. And then when we turn that back around, this is going to make it a bit easier to close that up because it's going to have the memory from the crease that we're making now. So that's there, and now I'm going to birth this bag. After I turn my bag, I really like to get my hand in there and make sure I'm poking out all of the corners, all of the seams, making sure everything is nicely poked out. That's particularly important on the corner where your zipper tab is. I like to stick my finger underneath there and really poke it out, open out that seam allowance a bit if you can, and then that will really help give you a good shape in your corner. It's kind of tricky to show you that, and I'm just folding that seam allowance open. I've just got my thumb in there and I just really push it in to that top corner, and that'll help give you a nice shape when you turn it. So the next thing is to close up the bottom, and then I'm going to press the exterior of the bag to get some of these creases from the fusible foam out, and then the last step will be doing the strap, which we will do tomorrow. So I'm gonna close this up and give that a press, and then we'll be back tomorrow to do the strap. So before I go, let me just show you what I'm going to be doing here. So just where you made your crease before, I'm just going to fold that over and then just sew from about 1/2 inch before the turning hole to about 1/2 inch after the turning hole, making sure that you backstitch to secure it. And then I also like to pull the thread through and knot it before I feed it back in. Actually, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So let's head over to the machine. I like to start my seam here where I'm closing the hole with a long tail so that I can tie a knot and then thread that through. So I'm about 1/2 inch before the turning hole. I'm sewing about a 1/16 of an inch from the edge so that it doesn't create too big of a ridge. Using a regular 2.4 stitch length back stitch, and then come back over, staying close to the edge but making sure that I'm catching both sides of the lining. Just sewing along here. I'm just going to keep going till I get 1/2 inch past where the hole is. Oh look, there's a thread sticking out there, so that's a good guide for me, and I can get rid of that after we're done. About 1/2 inch, back stitch again, and then again I'm going to leave a nice long tail. Okay, then what I like to do is pull the thread through to one side. Sometimes it pulls easily and sometimes I have to thread it with my needle. This looks like that one's going to pull okay. So pull both of those to one side. Then I tie a knot because I don't want this lining to come open. So I do a square knot. And then you get your needle. Just a regular sewing needle. And then I just will thread that tail back through. Oops, sorry. Where are we? Here we go. So I will just thread that tail back through the lining. Usually poke it out in the gap there. Take this, thread it through, and then I trim right here. And that's just how I like to do my knots on either end of the turning hole closure, just to give it a little bit more security there. So tomorrow we will do the strap. If you have some creases in your bag like I do, I recommend pressing it before we attach the strap. So I would go ahead and do that if you need to. And then tomorrow I will be back to show you how to make the strap and pop it on. And that's going to be the last thing. Cool. Thanks everyone. Bye.